everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to create a slimline scene card using Inktense Watercolor pencils to color in the images. I'm going to start off with the background, and I'm using a Color for Life Designs cloud, I believe it's called a cloud edger stencil, and some colors of Distress Oxide. We're using shaded lilac and Kitsch flamingo. And to use the stencil, the best way I found to do it is to put most of the ink on the stencil and then just pull a little bit of it off of the stencil. So with the exception of one of the, I think it might be right here with the pink, I go on directly and yeah, there you go. And it's too heavy-handed. You'll see I try to fix it a little bit, but that was the only spot that I didn't love. Everything else looked nice and soft because I went in with a light hand, or for me, a light hand, and I tried to go and put most of the ink on the stencil and just pull a little bit of it off. So really, really easy to do and creates a cool background. This is one of my favorite stencils lately. I'm just loving using it. I use it on as much as I can. So if you haven't already guessed from the stamped images you saw in the beginning, this card is going to be a representation from a very popular movie lately. My niece Nora turned 7 a couple weeks ago, and her birthday party was in this movie's theme. So I just knew I had to get those stamps for her. These are from 2 different sets, and I will put the list, the names of them below in the more information section, as well as the stencil that I'm using. But this is, like I said, for her birthday, and this was her birthday theme. We did an arts and crafts thing at a place called Pinspiration, which is really cool. They did 2 different crafts, and the girls did such a good job. It was really cute to see everybody pick out their own colors. They painted a canvas, and then they did alcohol inks on a tile. So it was a great birthday party. So back to the card, I am just adding a couple of details. I've never seen the movie, and I Googled the images from the movie, and the movie poster came up, so I tried to replicate it as close as I possibly could. So it is a Spanish tile roof on the building. I guess this is their house, and I'm just drawing in little scallops to mimic that, to make it look a little bit more like the house or the building that was on the poster. So once that's done, I used, and I also used a Copic Safe marker, so it's okay to use watercolors with that. So you're just going to see I'm lining up that house on there, and this was the one that I originally did, and I didn't like, I actually colored in the trees. I thought they were actually green, but they're not in the poster because I didn't reference it. So they're actually a pink and a purple. So I used this one just to kind of test out colors and also placement. So you'll see I've stamped down the 2 main girls, or I'm getting ready to stamp down the girls, and I drew in the path. So we're gonna kind of doctor up the path in a couple minutes, but I wanted to stamp the girls out first before we did anything else. So I am using the Fawn Jet Black ink, which I absolutely love this ink. I think it stamps beautifully for everything, and it is Copic Safe, watercolor safe, so it's, you know, it's my go-to ink. So I am stamping that out. I did stamp it a couple times because these are newer stamps. And now I am erasing the lines of the path that were on the one girl on the right, because I kind of went through and had the lines kind of went through her body. So now we're just going to go in and watercolor. So I'm going to use a couple different techniques, and this is what I normally do when I watercolor. This is the direct to paper, and you can see that I was putting dots in there to give it a little bit of texture, because some of that dots, you can keep some of that dot structure. You can go back in after it's dry and add little dots into there, but I decided that I was just going to try starting out with the dots and seeing how this goes, because I don't think I've ever done this technique before. So I do that. I will also go in with a little bit of water on my paintbrush and grab some of the pigment from the pencil to get like a more concentrated color. I will also, when it comes time to doing the roof, I will lay a couple colors down, and it kind of reminds me of those magic coloring books, the ones that they have the color in the pages, but you can't see them until you run that pen over it, and it's a mixture of colors. I kind of feel like that is the same type of technique with this. So I'm going to do kind of a little bit of story time as we go through this, because I left a lot of the coloring in so you guys can see the different techniques and how I use these watercolor pencils, because there are a bunch of different ways to use them, and I kind of showcase them all as we're going through. So while I am watercoloring and you guys are watching, hopefully story time will be interesting to you. So like I said, Nora had turned 7 the other day. Mila turned 3 at the end of February. So the kids are all getting so big. I have 3 nieces now that are all 7, and then Mila's 3. So I've been spending a lot of time with them. We've been, Madeline just finished up her last cheerleading competition, and they got first place. And because they hit 0 and got first place, they got rings. So she was super excited about that. And so we were all there to see her perform in her last routine. So that was really cool. And now she's trying out for the new team. Brooklyn is doing Ninja Warrior. Nora and Mila are dancing. And unfortunately, I am going to miss Mila's first recital ever, which I am devastated about. But I'm going to try to see if I can go to the rehearsal so I can at least see it. But love being involved in the girls' lives, and, lots of good, exciting things happening for them. A little bit about what's going on in my life. So work has been really crazy. If you guys are new to the channel, I have been, I started a new job with the same company in January. And then, say in March, I think it was, we switched over. So I lost part of the desk that I had been working on, kept half of it, and then picked up another person's entire desk. So I'm doing a job and a half. There's a couple people on my team that got nothing. There's a guy that got half of my work. So he has his work plus half of mine. And then I took somebody's full desk plus half of mine. So it's been a little bit stressful. We have a lot going on. And then we're also trying to train people over in India to take care of some of the job stuff. So it's just been a lot. And I, as you may or may not know, because I participated in the EDS hop, actually Allison and I sponsored it. I talked about my EDS story in there. If you guys want to see it, I will link it below so you can learn about EDS and hear my story if you would like to. But my EDS has pretty much been under control. I haven't had any real flare-ups lately, until last week. It's the worst pain I've ever been in, and I was in bed crying one day because I just couldn't get out of bed. It was very intense, and I just didn't know what to do about it. Unfortunately, there is very little. It's hard to get diagnosed. There's not very much known about it. Everybody's symptoms are completely different. There are a bunch of different types of it. And right now I don't have a doctor that I'm seeing because it's been so long. I don't know if I'd have to go in as a new patient or what the deal is. But anyway, I have not seen a doctor for this in a very, very long time. So it's hard. And just these flare-ups were really, really bad. I had pain everywhere. My bones hurt. Everything hurt from my head to my toes. So it did get a little bit better. I got a little bit less stressed. Some of the stuff that I was stressing about were upcoming appointments, and we had those appointments. I put pressure on myself, but there was some external pressure put on me as well, and I think my body just couldn't take it anymore. So the pain is getting a little bit better. I've gotten past some of the things that were the real I guess, pressure cooker things. And now I am starting to feel a little bit better. I'm taking tomorrow off, and you guys will see this actually. So it will be tomorrow, Friday, by the time you guys get this. And I am going to do my first ever float. And I'm super excited about this. If you guys are unfamiliar with it, they used to have just the pods. And I feel like it would be like you were in a coffin. So I refuse to do those. But now they have rooms where you can keep the door open, you can keep the lights dimmed, you can keep music on. So that's the kind of float I'm going to do. It's a bunch of, I believe it's like Epsom salt in the water, and you float there. So I'm going to do an hour one and see how I do with this. Hopefully I'm not too claustrophobic, and hopefully it's not too bad, because I freak out when I get water in my ears and they give you earplugs. So we're going to see how this is going to go. So we'll see tomorrow. So this is supposed to relieve inflammation, pain, and it's supposed to basically take the pressure off of all of your muscles and your bones, because you're weightless for an hour. I'm hoping that this will, bring me some relief from the pain, because right now I'm in pain, but it's definitely nowhere near as bad as it was. So back to the card. We'll get back to story time in a minute, but back to the card. I just wanted to, I'm kind of using all of the techniques to color in the building and, color in the lights. I was going back and forth with the picture just to see, what colors they used, and just tried to do as much of the same. It's not the exact same building, but it is very similar. And then with the roof line added, I really think it looks similar. And, just trying to use very similar colors to what I have. I do have a couple sets of Inktense Watercolor pencils, so I do believe I probably have all of the colors that they make in the watercolor line. If you do not have these pencils, let me just tell you, they are fantastic. I am not great at watercoloring. When I watercolor, before I got these pencils, what I used to do was use distressed inks or distressed oxides, put them down on my mat, and then spray a little bit of water and pick them up and watercolor like that. These are so much easier because you can lay the color down and then spread it out. I really am not great at watercoloring, but these make it super, super easy. So if you have a tough time watercoloring, I highly recommend getting the set of 12 and trying them out, because I think they're absolutely wonderful. I, can't say enough great things about these, and no, I've bought them all myself, so no, unfortunately, I'm not sponsored, and nobody is asking me to do a review on these or say anything, but hey, Derwent, if you want to, feel free to send me them. I absolutely love these Inktense watercolor pencils. So now we're going to move on to coloring of the girls, and the coloring is pretty much the same for both of them. I am going to add a little bit of detail to this girl's outfit, because when I looked her up, she had a little bit of flowers on there. So this is what I love about these images. I generally, when I stamp images like this that are just really plain, there's not much detail in the outfits that they're wearing, you can alter images. That's one of my favorite ways to make things more personalized, is to alter the image. So you'll see here that I'm adding that little flower to her top just to kind of give it a little bit of something. So I am going in with a couple of colors of blue for her skirt, but I'm doing every other layer of her skirt right now, or layer of her skirt, or band of her skirt, whatever you want to call it, because I want to wait for it to dry before I go on to the next one. I don't want the colors to run together. Just doing the same type of technique, laying a little bit of color down and pulling it out with the water. Now it's interesting because I was watching Kelly Lativola Taylor, now her last name is Taylor now, but her video with Karen markers, and she said something interesting, that you actually want to go where there's no color and put the water down, and then move into where you've laid the color down, because you will get more of a color variation that way. I'm going to have to try that out, because I generally don't watercolor like that. I usually put a little bit of watercolor in my brush and then go to where I've put the pigment and pull it out. She kind of does the opposite, so I'm very curious to see how it works with me doing it, because it's not always guaranteed to be a success when I do something. But let me know, how do you watercolor? Do you do it like I'm doing it in this video, where you go and pull the pigment out, or do you do it more like Kelly and go to the empty area, put a little bit of water down, and then go to the pigment, so the water kind of travels to the pigment? Let me know, and let me know if I got that wrong, but I think that's how she was describing it. Let me know how you guys watercolor, because I'm always looking for new techniques. It's, again, a medium that it's a technique that I like doing, but only with certain mediums, not with regular watercolors. So now you see I'm going in here with her hair, and I'm going to go in. This is I think this is called ink black, or black ink, something like that, which is the darkest pencil that I have, and doing their hair, because they both have dark colored hair. So I tried to cut out the most repetitive parts and just show you things that I'm using either a different technique for, or it's a different part of a character. Like if it was coloring in the whole building, I tried not to do the whole building, but I tried to just highlight sections of it. So the reason that I did that is because I wanted you to see the different techniques that I use, but I also wanted you guys to give me some feedback. Do you color the same way that I do? Is there a different technique that you find helpful, or that you really, really like to do? Because I love learning. I love watching other people's videos. Lately, it's been a lot of Kelly Taylor's videos, just to see, she's been doing some watercoloring, and I just love her Copic coloring. She's one of my favorite coloring, I guess, artists to watch. But she did some watercoloring, like I said, with the Karen markers the other day. So just curious, I tried to pick up some of her techniques. I actually did this video before I watched that one. So I've picked up a couple techniques since then. So I'm just going in and coloring in some of the flowers, and these are really, really small areas. So I put a little bit of pigment down, and then I'm just going to take my brush and pull out that pigment. So, like I said, I know this video is super long, but it's, a lot longer than the videos that I normally do, but I also wanted to get a little bit of story time in. So, the cats are doing good. That's the other, I don't know if anybody has questions about them, but you will hear Lucy in a lot of the videos. She is very talkative, and it's actually funny. I was training people today, and they're over in India, so it's nighttime for them, and God bless them that it's very late there, and they're up, and I'm training them because they're going to be taking over parts of my job. And Lucy always takes the most inopportune times to talk. And when she talks, she doesn't sound like a cat. She sounds like a crying child. So I had to, make a disclaimer for her and say that, yes, that is not a child crying. It is my cat. And then, of course, she had to make an appearance as I was trying to present stuff to them. So I'm on camera, and she jumps up on my chair, and she will sit on the armrest of my chair, and then she jumps up onto the desk and just walks right across. So her whole body, her butt and her tail goes onto the screen. So, it's very professional, I know. So, but yes, so she loves to make appearances in my video calls. So she did that today. So everyone at work, all my new team members, these three people over in India who are going to be taking over some of the paperwork part of my job, who, we are all taking turns for 2 hours each week training. They all got to meet Lucy today. So, she makes appearances in these videos. She makes appearances in my work videos, but they're both doing really well. Fred is, he's got his good days and bad days, but he is a trooper. He's really hanging in there. He still goes up and down steps. He still jumps up on the bed. So we're good. Okay, so back to the card. I did fussy cut out the building, and now I'm just going around the edges because this paper has a white core, and with the black outline, it just makes it look a little bit more finished. And you can see that on the back side, that is where I was practicing some of my coloring when I thought that I was actually going to fussy cut the two female characters out as well. But then I realized that the one girl has the flowers over top of her head, and that would just be, I was not going to do that. So change of plans. So now we're picking out this stencil from Honeybee, and I am going to create my own walkway. So you're going to see the stones, and that's what was in the video, or I'm sorry, not the video, the poster for the movie. And I just thought, hey, I can do this. I can recreate this. Think, go through your stamps and dies and stencils and try to figure out different ways that you can use them, because you would just think that this would be something that you would just ink on. But this, I created my own walkway, which in the colors of the pathway in the movie, by doing this. So you're going to see I'm going in with a couple colors of like orangey brown, and I am drawing out the little stones, and then I am going to use my my brush to pull out the color in these ones. So there are a bunch of openings, and I will go back in with the stencil and add a little bit more of the rocks in there. And then I will take, I think I just take a little bit of water from and a little bit of one of the colors and go back in and color in the rocks in between. So you see here, I'm going back and laying that stencil back down to add some more rocks in there. It's a little bit hard to see through this to see, exactly how many rocks I needed, but I just wanted to add some here and there. And I did make sure that I had kind of a line going down the side, so I didn't put a full rock on all of them on the right and left side of the path. I made it cut off so it looked more realistic than just doing like a full stone on the whole entire thing. I hope that makes sense. So I did a border, kind of like it would be in real life, kind of do a border and then do part of the part of the stone there. So I think you can see it when I pull it all off at the end and I show you the whole thing. I think that makes a little bit more sense. Like you can see the ones that I just colored, they're maybe like 3/4 of a stone rather than the full stone. So you see, I'm just going back in with some of those colors that I chose. Again, they were like brownish, orangish, yellows. Sometimes it's really hard to pick the colors from these because the color that's on the end, you can see there's a little, like the top of the pencil is colored. It's not exactly the color that the pencil actually comes out, and then it's even more different when you watercolor with it. So now I'm just placing the house back on top to see how far up that path should go to make sure that I'm going in and coloring in all the areas. I'm not losing anything. That big rock at the top on the right, you can't even see that when I glue the house onto there. So I didn't need that one, but I just wanted to make sure it was up high enough into the clouds that there wasn't going to be a big gap. So going back again and pulling out that color because it looked too stark white, even though this isn't white paper. And I believe this is Canson XL Watercolor paper. So it's just the very cheap kind from Michael's. I don't use anything super fancy. Sometimes I even will use the one from the kids section, and I find it works perfectly with these Inktense pencils. So now I'm going back in with 2 colors of green to create the grass. I'm just laying down colors, and then this is also where, when I was talking about those books where you would color with the markers, this is kind of the same technique as I did with the roof. I'm just going to go around and put 2 different colors or 2 different shades of green down, and then we're going to put some water on the brush. I actually switched to a brush that is a more of a flat brush because it's going to take, there's more surface area. So you see I'm just dipping my paintbrush in water and smoothing it out so you can see the color variation that'll give you. You can do this with more than 2 colors. If you need to do 3 or 4, just kind of scribble them down in place and then pull them out, and it will give you depth and dimension. You can do it purposefully So if you have a section that you want to be darker than another section, but I just kind of randomly went through and added the greens wherever I felt like it. There was no rhyme or reason for it. I just wanted to get some green on there. I believe I will go in with the tips of the colored pencil to add a little bit more. You can see some of the brush strokes, and that didn't bother me because it reminded me of blades of grass. If that does bother you, you can go add a couple more layers. You can see if you can kind of smooth those out, but I liked it because grass obviously has blades, so I thought you would naturally see some lines in the grass as it was. So just finishing off that grass, and this part was super easy. A lot of this coloring, my watercoloring does take really long. I think when I edited the video and the whole entire footage, I think I had over an hour's worth of footage. Actually, it was way more than that because I cut it down a lot. So I probably had about an hour and a half of footage and cut it down to this. So the card is almost finished. We are just going to use the Honeybee Be Creative Precision Glue to put glue on the back of the building, stick it down to the card front, and then we are going to use a sentiment from one of the Kindred Stamps sets to stamp out a sentiment at the top. So since it was a birthday card, I picked I think it was the only birthday sentiment that was on that stamp set. I'm going to put it back into my Misty, and I'm going to use the shaded lilac Distress Oxide to stamp it. I wanted it to be kind of not, because I think black would have looked too harsh against this because the sky had really soft colors. So I wanted to go with one of the two colors that we did the stenciling for. So I picked shaded lilac to stamp it out. Now when I stamp in Distress Oxide, especially Distress Oxide, sometimes I do distressed ink as well. I will use something like my Misty because I need to stamp it multiple times. It's not meant to be a stamping ink, so you definitely need to stamp it a couple times. I'm now taking a white gel pen and adding some details, and this is when I feel like the card really comes alive. I put the dots in their eyes, like the pupils of their eyes, and I add some highlights to their outfits and some of the other scenes. And once that is done, I'm also going to use glossy accents on the one girl's glasses to make them look reflective, but I think that's after I put the card together. I'm using that same Be Creative precision glue from Honeybee to glue the card down to the card base. I didn't stamp a sentiment on the inside because I wrote Nora a birthday note. I usually don't stamp anything. I just write the girls a long note about what I wish for them for the year. And then you can see I'm going in with glossy accents, and that is the card. So thank you guys. If you've stuck with me this long, thank you guys so much. I know it was a longer video. I appreciate you staying with me. Leave any comments and questions below, and I will see you guys again real soon for another video. Bye!